Welcome, everybody, to the Montrose Vibes podcast, your source for the latest and greatest entertainment happenings in and around Montrose. I'm Monica, and with me is Matt.
We are coming to you from MDP Studios, and with us is a special guest, Eric Palumbo of Cimmaron Coffee Roasters. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you.
So, Eric, you have two locations, one in Ridgeway and the other here in Montrose. How did that come to be?
Well, the original Cimmaron Coffee and Books was originally Cimmaron Books, and then it was Cimmaron Books and Coffee, and then I bought it. So all that happened in the last 27 years. The original proprietor, Priscilla Peters, is still down in Ridgeway, still has the license plate Bookwoman on her car, but she opened the shop 1991, I think, so 27 years. And grew it into a great, iconic stopping place in Ridgeway. And yeah, I bought it 5 years ago, March 1st, so 1 month ago was our kind of 5-year anniversary under new ownership. Then I started roasting coffee. I like to dig into whatever I'm doing, and I loved coffee before I had a coffee business, but I didn't know what I didn't know about coffee. And as I started to explore coffee more, roasting was something that really interested me. So I tried roasting and found I had a knack as well as a passion for it. I originally roasted in my in-laws' tool shed.
They must have been so thrilled.
They were, actually. They loved it. I mean, it smells great. Some coffee, I'm not a really dark roaster, so the acrid smells that sometimes are associated with coffee roasting don't come out of my chimney. So it smelled wonderful. And it wasn't really pleasant for me, though. Those weeks around January 1st that are always sub-zero temperatures, I couldn't get close enough to the roaster inside the tool shed, and the weeks in August that are 100 plus degrees outside, I couldn't get far enough away from the roaster, so I really needed a place. And yeah, I just I think I had only been thinking about it for a little while and looked at Craigslist and saw this space for rent. And I walked in this space and knew it was it, and that was it. So, and that was 3 years ago now that we started roasting in the Sampler Square space.
Now, before we get into your roasting process, you mentioned your love for coffee going back a while. Can you talk about just when and how you developed a love for coffee?
I'm a foodie. I've been a foodie as long as I can remember. I was a musician, a struggling musician. That was my original education and my original vocation. And to make ends meet, I worked in restaurants, and I did finally work my way up to a pretty fine dining restaurant. So I developed a palate from that. Coffee was one that I thought I knew coffee. I bought great coffee machines and stuff like that back when I was working in my second vocation, finance. But I didn't really know that much about coffee, I found. But I loved what I did have, if that makes sense. And then I got into coffee and really started exploring all the different origins and how it's produced and how it's processed, and found that coffee is way more complex and interesting than anything I had ever imagined. So it went from just like, I love a good cup of coffee, to coffee is amazing. So
the Cimmaron location in Montrose, which I would say I've been in more often than the shop in Ridgeway, it's a pretty unique experience. It doesn't seem like you're going for, as I was telling you before we started recording this, like a Starbucks atmosphere. It's really a roasting shop. Can you just talk about the atmosphere that you're going for there?
Sure. I didn't rent it with a specific plan to have a coffee shop there. Mm-hmm. I rented it because it was 4 walls with heating and cooling. Mm-hmm. So we talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
But as I moved in, it's got 18, 20-foot exposed brick walls. It's that high ceiling. It's just a really great space. And I found that I didn't need it all for my roasting production. And there was kind of a natural space that lent itself to the idea of being a coffee bar. So I think of it more as a coffee laboratory than maybe your coffee place. We do have grab and go coffee. We have Bratz Brew coffee now, which is fairly new. If you just want to grab a cup of great coffee, you can come in, get our award-winning Chimney Rock. We'll pour it for you, and you're out the door. But we also still have pour-over coffee, so you can taste any of the coffees we're currently roasting. And then we do some lattes. We have house-made vanilla syrup and house-made chocolate syrup for those who like to sweeten it up a bit. So it can appeal to anybody who likes any kind of coffee. We've got steeping leaf teas now, so that we've had plenty of people come in and say, "Hey, I really like the atmosphere, but I'm not a coffee person." So we're trying to evolve a little bit that way. The focus is still on our coffee, which makes sense to me. But if you want a real quote-unquote coffee shop experience, the Ridgeway experience is where you can get all kinds of flavors and matcha powder and beet powder and all the fun trendy stuff, where we're more focused just on the coffee. But it's really just such a neat space. You have to kind of see it to believe it.
Yeah, it's a nice location.
Yeah.
Nice place to hang out.
You talked with Matt last year for a story about some prestigious awards your coffee has won. Can you talk about that?
Sure, yeah. We participate occasionally in coffeereview.com's review process when they solicit reviews from coffee roasters around the world that fit our wheelhouse, what we're doing at the time. We submit coffees to be reviewed. And last year they had a quote-unquote darker roast review in August, I believe it was, and because they usually focus, and I think the roasters who participate usually focus on lighter roasts, but they opened it up to a darker roast to bring in those people who aren't into light roasts. So we've always had a dark roast that isn't super dark. It's just a nice creamy chocolatey kind of coffee, and I thought, I wonder how they'll like it. So I sent that in, and it ended up being one of their top 3 non-espresso blends of the year for 2017.
And didn't you see it on Twitter? Isn't that how you found out about it? Or on social media?
Oh, I've watched Coffee Review for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I saw that announcement on Twitter. Yeah, they didn't call me or email me or anything. It was just like, Twitter, here we go, top 30. Well, they do a top 30 coffees of the year, where a Kenyan coffee that we submitted for their holiday seasonal kind of coffee, because we brought that one in at the end of November, so it was very seasonal, and it reminded me of cranberries. That one was their number 20 coffee for the year. So I saw both of those within a couple of hours and was just like, holy cow.
And for people who don't know, that's not like just a random website. It's not a blog. This is like a coffee authority.
They've been around for 20 years. Yeah, coffeereview.com.
These are people who know and drink coffee.
Yeah.
Quality.
They know their coffee. Yeah.
They're Q graders, which are like sommeliers for coffee.
It's a lot different than one of us going in there and saying, this is great coffee. This is someone who actually knows what they're talking about outside of just enjoying a cup of joe as you.
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking about your coffee. What are some of the blends that, I know what you guys have, but just the blends that you particularly enjoy in roast?
Well, we always have 2 blends to keep it simple. Our espresso blend that we always have on our house espresso is our Courthouse blend. And then we have Chimney Rock blend is our house darker roast that we always have brewed at both shops. So that's your quick grab and go coffee. Those are named after peaks in the Cimmaron range. So, I was very creative there. Other than those 2, we are generally doing single origin coffees. So I'm always tasting new coffees, whatever is coming fresh into the country, because the coffee calendar is pretty cyclical. So there's always something coming new and fresh into the country. And the importers that we work with will send us what they think that we'll like. And I look through their catalogs and see what we think we'll like. And we taste dozens of coffees until we find one that says, wow.
Do you ever get tired of it?
Oh,
like,
God,
I
no,
don't want a cup of coffee today.
That's my favorite part, honestly, is sourcing the coffees, because they're all so different. I mean, you can get 20 different coffees from a small town in Yirgacheffe in Ethiopia, and they will all be different in some way, where they generally are all coming from similar coffee plants, just how they are processed, how they're cared for, how they're imported to the U.S., all of that goes into kind of the freshness and the sparkliness that I look for in, say, an Ethiopian coffee. And that's really what I look for. How sweet can it be naturally, and does it have kind of some kind of an interesting sparkle? So I am always buying coffees and looking for coffees that are different than what we already have. Or to replace what we have. Like we're coming into the new Ethiopians here in the summer, and we're just finishing up with last year's Ethiopians. So somehow I did some good timing there.
Nice.
So we'll be tasting Ethiopians as soon as they hit the importer's docks.
So roasters is part of the name.
Right.
And I think that really distinguishes what you guys do. But for people who don't know what coffee roasting is, can you describe that process and how it works?
Sure. Coffee is a seed from a fruit that looks like a very small cherry. And when it arrives to us, it looks like a small grain seed, about a half the size of what you would see if you look at a coffee bean that's been roasted. Roasting is done, it's just a high heat baking kind of apparatus. We use what's called a drum roaster, where the beans are tossed inside of a drum in order to keep them from burning on the side of the drum, and to allow air to flow through them so that you get a good combination of convective and conductive heat. And that's part of the kind of craft, is determining how much you want convective versus conductive heat, how fast you want to take the coffee from green to brown. A friend of mine is noted for saying that anybody can turn green coffee brown, but it takes magic to make it sing.
And you get beans from all over the world, right? So you kind of already described how you go about that process, but it seems like you're doing that a lot.
Oh yeah, really the best roasters are the best tasters. If you're not tasting all kinds of coffees, you're just letting importers send you the cheapest, or whatever's in your price point. I think you're missing out on a lot of what goes into coffee roasting.
And you had a nickname, I'm trying to remember what it was, for your coffee roasting process, but it was your style.
Right, highlight roasting.
That's what it is.
Yeah, so I tell people all the time that a coffee cherry is perfect when it's picked, because coffee doesn't ripen uniformly on the shrub. So you've got unripe berries next to overripe berries next to perfectly ripe berries. So it all has to be done by hand. So you've got people picking just the best cherries if you're going to have the best coffee. And from the second they pick that cherry, everything that happens to it until it gets in your cup can only detract from the perfection that the farmer put into that cherry. So how it's transported to where it's processed, how it's processed. I've already gotten into how it's imported, all that stuff, all the way down to how you roast it. So my roasting, I think of trying to highlight what is intrinsic in those beans that I found interesting when I sampled them.
Oh.
And you had said that you guys have an upcoming event. Can you give us some details about that?
Sure, yeah. We're excited to be throwing, as far as we know, the second, I guess it wouldn't be inaugural because it's second, but it's our inaugural latte art throwdown. It's the second one we're aware of that's taken place on the western slope. There was one last year up at Kiln up in Grand Junction. Looked like it was a roaring success, but I was too busy running my business to get to it. But on Friday, May 11th at 6 o'clock, or 6 o'clock sign-in, we are going to be hosting a latte art throwdown, which is a competition between baristas to draw pretty designs in lattes. We'll have 3 judges. It's a head-to-head competition, so barista, they both make a cup of latte, and then our 3 judges point to the one that they like on count of 3. So it's like instant elimination. It's super fun to watch. We're going to have free beer, free snacks.
Free coffee?
Duh.
No.
There will be plenty of things. It's open to the public, free to the public. For baristas who want to join, it'll be a $5 buy-in, and then the winner takes all.
And they can come from anywhere.
Yeah, they can come definitely anywhere. We're going to advertise it on the Colorado TNT Thursday Night Throwdown Facebook page, which is followed by people all over the state. So we'd love to have people from the Front Range if they can make it, or the Mid-Range. There's some great coffee in the... did I make that up? Is there such thing as a Mid-Range?
No, in the mountain area.
The mountain area, yeah. Anybody is welcome to come and sign in and throw their milk in the ring, so to speak. And we're just looking for sponsors, but I hope to have a few notable sponsors on board for some other prizes, and yeah, it's just going to be our first big party.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah. And again, you have 2 locations. Can you remind our listeners where they are and how they can find you online?
Sure. The original Cimmaron Coffee and Books in Ridgeway is at 380 West Sherman Street, right across the street from the park, underneath Lupita's Bazaar. And the Montrose Roastery Laboratory. I should say Ridgeway right now is open from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. In Montrose, we are at 72 South Grand Avenue. So right there by Amelia's Mexican Restaurant, or the Fancy Rooster Tattoo Shop, Healthy Rhythm, the Art Gallery. So everybody else is there in Sampler Square. We're there right now Monday through Friday, 8 to 3, but we'll be adding Saturdays, also 8 to 3 in May.
Exciting. Well, here's the tough question, the one we've been saving the entire time. Hope you're ready. You look ready.
Now I'm nervous.
How many cups of coffee do you have in a day?
I honestly don't drink a lot of coffee. I taste a ton of coffee.
Okay, that makes
sense.
So
I drink most of my coffee by the sip.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a lot of cupping during the day, where we don't actually brew it in a traditional brewing sense. It's a brew that's made so that we can taste a lot of coffees really fast. And then I've got a spoon that I dip into it and just slurp it up like I'm sampling wine or something like that.
So you get your coffee fix, though.
Oh, I get plenty of coffee. Yeah, and we're constantly tasting our wares throughout the day to make sure that consistency stays. And I should mention that I hope to do some coffee cuppings open to the public, hopefully before the summer really gets rolling, so you can come in and slurp all the coffee you want and taste all of our coffee varietals side by side.
Oh, that'll be a good day. We will be there.
Yes, let us know.
Eric, we want to thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. And some of the best coffee I've had in my life. So you guys will probably find me in there quite often. And we will catch you next week. Better than ever.
Catch you later, Montrose.
Can I throw one more thing out? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You asked where to find us online, and I totally spaced that.
You're right.
And we do a lot of sales online. We sell all over the country from CimmaronRoasters.com. And if you want to keep up with our throwdowns and our tastings and any other fun things we're doing, check us out on Instagram. Cimmaron Roaster on Instagram is the best place to follow.
You heard them on Instagram. They're online, worldwide. Yeah, we appreciate it, Eric. Sorry we left you hanging with the online question.
Oh, you asked, I didn't answer.
All right, we'll tune in next week, folks. Thanks again.
Catch you later.
Thank you.